Donald Trump currently has a really crazy plan for the financial markets and Bitcoin. And Scott Bessent, the US Treasury Secretary, is speaking up now. And he says that the current declines in the stock market and the global financial markets don't indicate a recession, but rather a detox, so a cleansing phase. We're looking at his latest statements, where you can see a bit of the direction the US is heading now. He also says it's not about elimination. So we don't want to crash the markets, because that's what a lot of people are currently suspecting, that Donald Trump is intentionally crashing the markets to trigger an interest rate cut from the Federal Reserve. But Scott Bessent makes it very clear, saying, hey, we don't want elimination here, we just want a cleansing of the market. Then we have gold hitting a new all-time high, and we need to take a look at that too. We have Putin now signing a peace deal with Ukraine for a 30-day ceasefire, which is also positive for the markets. And here comes the big news. Jack Mallers says in a new statement that the Bitcoin price still has a 400 to 500x potential. So we still have a potential quadrupling or 500-fold increase in the Bitcoin price ahead of us. But first, let's dive into the new gold all-time high. It's really fascinating how gold has been massively skyrocketing lately. While Bitcoin has shown some weakness here, that means we're currently seeing an absolute risk-off sentiment. That means investors are getting out of risk assets, and Bitcoin is still being viewed as a risk asset, and they're heading into safe havens. So, for me, Bitcoin is also a safe haven, no doubt about it. For Larry Fink, Bitcoin is also a safe haven, for Katie Wood, for many others, but for a lot of folks out there who still don't get that Bitcoin is the safe haven, they end up fleeing to government bonds or gold. Gold is now trading at over $3,000 per ounce. And we've also seen in the past that it doesn't necessarily have to be a bad sign for Bitcoin, because gold often comes first and then Bitcoin follows. On the other hand, gold is also a major crisis indicator. Some are also saying that the current rise in gold is a potential indicator for a bad or negative economic development that could potentially be coming our way. But with the peace deal between Putin and the US regarding Ukraine, at least for 30 days, there's a bit more security in the air. Of course, there's still the whole customs issue, which is still unclear. And it is still unclear whether Donald Trump is intentionally driving the economy into the wall, or if these are actually just the side effects, the detox, the cleansing that Scott Bessent is about to talk about, which we'll take a look at shortly. But before we get to Scott Bessent, let's take a quick look. Here's what Putin has to say right now, because this is also relevant here for the financial markets.
We agree with the propositions to stop hostilities, but we proceed from the fact that such ceasefire should be such that would lead to a permanent peace and remove the original causes of the crisis.
Then he actually wants to tackle the root causes of the war, of the conflict, and wants to fix that. You have to say, Donald Trump has actually made his next promise clear here. He said that in a week or so, the war would be over. Now, it didn't take a week, but a bit longer. Sure, a ceasefire isn't peace or anything like that. There's still a piece missing. But this is the first step. Now, after a really long time, there are finally some positive news coming in. And then that would, of course, be very, very good. Then, there are all the special funds in Germany, the whole Rearm Europe initiative, and so on. That would also raise some question marks about whether we really need all these massive bazookas to turn the economy into a war economy, which a lot of people see as very, very critical. Because money is just being thrown around endlessly, and of course, there are also potential expropriations in the EU in Germany. And now we're actually looking at the statements from Scott Bessent, who is just confirming Donald Trump's plan again. Donald Trump's plan, which by now isn't really a secret anymore, is actually quite public. It's also communicated that he doesn't really care about the stock market in the short term. He looks at everything from a long-term perspective and is willing to accept short-term pain. And potentially, the markets in Bitcoin and so on could crash down. All the uncertainty could also be that it's being deliberately provoked. But it's clear here that they don't want to trigger a recession. Instead, it's just said that they want to do a cleansing. But just take a look at this.
Sarah, what I like to emphasize, I emphasized it yesterday to the business leaders. I want to emphasize it to your viewers. But let's remember, the E in Doge is efficiency. It's not elimination. It's not extinction. We are trying to make the government do better for the American people and right-size it. And
well, he initially makes a statement about the Department of Government Efficiency, because many people have indeed said, for example, that Donald Trump wants to crash the markets. He is talking about extinction or elimination, here from the markets and so on. But Scott Bessent says, no, it's not about the eradication or elimination of the markets or anything like that. It's really about efficiency, and if we want more efficiency, then we first have to take on potential pain. A similar process has also taken place in Argentina. In Argentina, things are looking really, really good now. So the economy is really making good progress. But at the beginning, a lot of people complained that there was more unemployment because some bullshit jobs were cut and so on and so forth. And something similar could be happening here in the US right now, where we're going through a detox phase, and Scott Bessent will touch on that shortly. But he says very clearly, no, it's not about the markets here. Consciously crashing down, at least that's how I understand it, because he is clearly talking about extinction, i.e. eradication, extinction or elimination. And as I understand it, this is a statement to the world saying, no, we don't want to deliberately crash the markets, but it's just a side effect of a much more important underlying process that we've now kickstarted. I think you can also read it here in the subtitle of the interview. Here it says, a detox doesn't have to mean a recession.
I don't think that there is anyone who is happy with the bundle of services that they get from the federal government. So you're sitting in Singapore. I met with some leaders from Singapore yesterday, and Singaporeans love their government. They think that it does good things for them, and they spend about 18% of GDP on their government. If we were to balance the budget, we'd be at 18% of GDP. So why can't we have the government do a better job for the American people at a better price?
It's important that he says they want to improve the value for money, especially if you see the government as a service provider. And he says, for example, in the US, people really hate the government. In Germany and Europe, it's kind of the case that people really freak out. And there are just countries like Singapore or maybe Switzerland or other places where people actually think their state or government is doing a good job because the value for money is just right. You can walk down the street without getting stabbed. You can actually get a good education there. You can potentially start a business there without facing overly complex bureaucratic hurdles. And on the other hand, the tax rates are fair. And that's why the next thing that should be set in motion here is to lower the taxes. If taxes are lower, then the economy will probably start to rise again. The economy will boom. And so on. And you just have to go through the detox process that Scott mentioned in the interview. So the interview, it goes on for more than this. About a minute or so. I just pulled out a few excerpts here. But Scott Bessent always talked about the detox effect and all that stuff. And this is just here. The economy will turn around, and in the long run, things will end up being good again. I mean, whether that's true or not, feel free to let me know down below. Let me know in the comments if you think Trump's and Scott Bessent's plan will work to strengthen the economy in the long run by making short-term cuts in the stock market and the Bitcoin market. Feel free to write that in the comments, or do you think this is going to backfire? And afterwards, neither the economy is in a better position, nor the stock market, nor Bitcoin. And it's so cool, I'm just here editing right now, and I'm walking past the cashew tree now. I actually have to show you this because I think most of you have never seen it live. Cashew nuts are actually growing here. So what you can see up here, that fat part, that's the fruit, and you can actually eat that. At the bottom is the nut, the cashew nut. And you have to be really careful. I can take this off here. You can see it here now. The nut, and here is the fruit. But you have to be very careful when you open the cashew nuts afterwards, because there are so many of them. Poisons or some kind of toxic oil or something like that that can really burn your skin. Well, not at all without opening a cashew. In any case, I'm taking that with me now. I wanted to take some more cashew nuts home with me later. And then I'm going to have a cashew party. But I'm still super bullish on Bitcoin. That's something you definitely need to keep in mind, even if I bring up certain issues here. Like in the last video, I actually brought up a few issues. She also shared a statement from Andreas Beck, who is somewhat skeptical about the whole Trump story. That doesn't mean I'm bearish on Bitcoin. Quite the opposite. I tweeted yesterday on X saying, hey folks, if you're not bullish on Bitcoin around $80,000 or so, has not earned $1 million, or at 2 million, or 10 million, or 100 million. And that's the important thing, you have to be bullish when other people are being bearish. And when other people are bullish, then you should be bullish too. So you really have to be bullish on Bitcoin because not much changes with the fundamentals. Sure, it goes up and down in the short term and all that, but long term, we have a really good outlook. And that's why Jack Mallers made a statement here that is truly fascinating. But he really hit the nail on the head. I can just say it's crazy how he analyzed this. He's talking about the potential of Bitcoin and what's coming our way. And anyone who is bearish here right now has truly lost control of their life. This statement from Jack Mallers is definitely worth watching. He's talking about a 400 to 500 times increase. That's coming our way. And some people are really bearish when the Bitcoin price hits them.
Humans own about $900 trillion worth of stuff right now. That's currency, real estate, art, collectibles, precious metals like gold, right? $900 trillion worth of stuff. It's estimated that about half of that is monetized, meaning they own the stuff, they own the house, they own the art, they own the precious metal, not to consume it, not to live in the house, not to look at the art and be like, oh, I love this art, but because they're trying to store wealth, they're trying to preserve value, they're going to sell it later. So that means the market opportunity to store wealth, store value, persist value you create for the world today and bring it to tomorrow is about $400 to $500 trillion. And that is where product market fit in extreme demand is from Larry Fink, from the bond market, from the treasury market, from retail consumers, from those living paycheck to paycheck. That's the product market we see in Strike. And the payment stuff, I would say less so. So when people say, can Bitcoin go higher than 100K? Well, the way I think about it is right now, Bitcoin's about $1.5 trillion in market cap. It's going after a $400 to $500 trillion opportunity. And that's in purchasing power terms. So in dollar terms, that'll go up as the currency weakens. So I think Bitcoin still has a 400 to 500x left in it. And we see that as a company. We onboard institutions, businesses, retail. We support the dollar, the pound, the euro. So we see the same demand globally, the same growth prospects globally. And that's where the product market fit is for us. I think Bitcoin's going to grow to hundreds of trillions of dollars in market cap. And there's going to be a lot of opportunity for all of us to share in that.
So what he's saying here is really amazing, and you really have to understand what he's talking about. He's talking about how there are 900 trillion global assets worldwide, like real estate, art, bonds, the stock market, currency, and so on. So when you put it all together, Bitcoin and so on add up to 900 trillion, and half of that is monetized. That means half of that is just being used or misused because our money is broken. So we have a monetary premium here, for example. You could say that real estate or something like that, where people buy a property not to live in it, but simply to save their money because our money is simply broken. If our money functioned as a store of value, people wouldn't buy so much real estate. But when our money is broken, you have to flee to other assets like real estate and also into the stock market and so on. Many people also assume that the stock market is massively overvalued because we simply have the monetary premium, because our money is broken and people then have to flee to the stock market because they cannot store money here in the euro or the dollar. And these 450 trillion that Jack Mallers is talking about, which are monetized here, that is the potential of Bitcoin. Because this money that's being misused is looking for a haven, a safe harbor, just a place where you can store value. And if people now realize, hey, Bitcoin is a better store of value than real estate, Bitcoin is a better store of value than maybe a stock, Bitcoin is a better store of value than maybe gold, then there will be a shift happening from gold, from real estate, from the stock market to Bitcoin. And here Jack Mallers talks about a 400 to 500x, the opportunity that's coming our way. So if the entire monetary premium is utilized, then Bitcoin could multiply by 400 to 500 times. That's not entirely accurate what he said here, because Bitcoin already has a market capitalization, I believe, around 1.7 trillion or something like that. Then the calculation isn't quite right. So it would actually be more like a 350 times increase or something like that, for 400 times, for 350 times, and for 300 times, and so on. You can't really say it exactly either, because you have to keep in mind that global assets are potentially always increasing since the denominator is becoming less valuable. So now we have global assets of 900 trillion. In 4 or 5 years, it might be 950 or 980 trillion because the denominator keeps getting weaker, and as a result, the assets appreciate or the denominator depreciates. And that's why it's a bit misleading. And the 400 or 500 times, that only happens if everyone realizes it and the entire monetary premium gets pulled out. And the question is whether that will happen. Feel free to drop that in the comments below. For example, if the entire monetary premium is pulled out of real estate here, from the stock market, and so on. Some people are saying, for example, that there's even a monetary premium of over 50% in real estate here in the U.S. So that more than 50% of real estate here is pure monetary premium. Other numbers suggest that it's around 70 to 80%. I don't expect the entire monetary premium to be pulled out. Jack Mallers' forecast here is a bit too bullish, but it could potentially head in that direction. But that's not going to happen in the next 1 or 2 years. It might take 30, 40, or even up to 100 years. It might even take 100 years. Maybe it just takes 20, 30, or 40 years. I don't know. In any case, this is a bullish outlook. And right now, you can't just bury your head in the sand. If you want to buy Bitcoin, I'm putting a link down below for you. 21 Bitcoin, how you can easily, safely, and simply buy Bitcoin. Here it is with the code BitcoinHotel. Up to 20% off the fees when buying Bitcoin. I'm going to show you another bullish outlook from El Salvador. Check out 21 Bitcoin. We'll see each other in Valhalla. Peace out.